Welcome back. This is Citizen FM 93.7, and you are listening to the Super Citizen at Sunrise. Well, the time is 8:08. How about that? Today is the 7th of December, 2022. It means that we are only a few days to Christmas. It's the most wonderful time of the year, according to some, and I think that I tend to agree. There is something magical about the end of the year, whether it's the Harmattan winds, and I'm enjoying that. I'm really glad that temperatures have calmed down because I'm not a creature of heat. I struggle with the heat. So I don't like dust either. But I will take dust any day as long as it guarantees me a little bit of a cooler weather. So I hope you're enjoying some of this. But none of these things, not the date, not the weather, not the temperatures, not what I like and do not like, can take away from the realities of our society. And what are the realities of our society? Well, when it comes to our big talk this morning, I want to introduce our topic this way, with my personal experience. Just a few days ago, I think it was on Monday, it was towards the end of the working day. I was about to leave the office, as usual. It didn't seem anything abnormal or unusual. Got into my car, started it, reversed, drove right out of the gates. And as I approached the junction, the intersection that would take me to the major highway which would lead me home, just as I was approaching that, and I was moving with regular speed, my speed wasn't high, but it was like a bolt out of the blue. It was a jolt of lightning. I lifted up my eyes, and there was a young man just running. He just darted across the front of the car as I was moving. I was confused. I didn't know what was happening. But this guy was, and he, on his head, this is what I saw in the flash of the second. And remember that what I'm telling you happened within a fraction of a second. You know, he had on his head a tray of tangerines. And he just ran across. And I almost hit him. I had to slam on the brakes. And as I slammed on the brakes, I came to a sudden stop, emergency braking, not even knowing or concerned about what's happening behind me, because you know what, when it comes to accidents, I would rather crash into cars than to crash into people, because when you crash into people, it's very complicated, even if it's a minor injury, because you have to take this person to the hospital, make sure they're okay. It just gets a lot more complicated. So I don't want to hurt anyone. But this man left me no choice. And I was shuddering, shaking, after he passed the front of my vehicle. I was glad that I avoided hitting or hurting him. But I was wondering, what was it? There is this thing that a little piece of wrapper that they tie into a bun and put on their heads. I know the word in Hausa. I don't know that there's a word for it in English, and there's probably not. In Hausa, I think it's called, I don't know. Is it called a majanyi? I don't know. But there is no word for it in English, but it's just a little, when you take a small piece of wrapper and you wrap it into a little bun and you put it on your head so that the tray can sit very well on your head. And that thing had fallen on the road. I drove over it. And I was wondering, what is responsible for this madness? What could drive a human being to do this? What was wrong with this guy? And it was only until I reached the junction that I understood the purpose of the cacophony, if I could call it that. It was development control. And they were coming in a pickup truck, and there were about 5, 6, 7 men in the back of the truck. And then I saw other traders who were running dispersed in different directions. So I started wondering, isn't there a better way to do this? Because I could have hit that young man. He could have been injured, or worse still, my blood runs cold. He could have been killed by me. So I'm wondering about street trading in Nigeria. So our reporters went out there to try to understand the situation a little bit more. Here's what they came back with.
Mashallah. Mesuna nang hanya, mesuna guruna. Galadima roundabout. Yanzu kana sana'a kana sai da face mask, da handkerchief, da towel.
Street selling or hawking in Nigeria and Africa is a common practice that evolved out of the need to solve problems such as unemployment, poverty, and consumer goods accessibility. Despite the best efforts by the government to eradicate the practice, it is not only surviving, it is booming. It is now common these days to see middle and high-income consumers purchase items in traffic jams and by roadsides on their way to or from work. For Salihu, a street seller, hawking is the major means of his livelihood. My business allows me to support and care for my girl. I can buy her clothes, shoes, and jewelries for the Salah celebration. It also allows me to contribute my quota back home by giving them money for food and other necessities. I also get to keep some of my earnings and put them to good use by sending them home to purchase and store things for me at home. Things are, however, not always pleasant for him and his colleagues. He reveals some of the challenges they encounter. The main problem we have in this industry is competition. There are far too many persons involved in this particular trade. Furthermore, some of my colleagues who sell along this route are not truly here to sell. They are cover-up criminals who come here to steal phones and goods from cars at the least opportunity, which greatly disrupts our business because we are wrongly accused of these people's crime. As a result, everyone thinks we are petty thieves, which is why law enforcement agents come here to chase us away. He also speaks on how the current economic situation has affected business. You know the way things are. All salary earners will always want to be paid. That's why towards the end or middle of the month, the business is most times slow. That's why you saw most of us sitting down, because the business is not booming. If the business is booming, you won't see anybody sitting down. Some Abuja residents we spoke to have their different views on the practice of street selling and hawking.
I see a street hawker as a person who offers goods for sale to the public without having a permanent built-up structure. That's who I see a street hawker to be. I see that poverty is on the increase, and it's a major cause for street hawking, because if you have a structure of your own, that's like a shop, you won't go to the streets, because with the dangers, even with the dangers of street hawking, you go to the streets to hawk. So I see poverty is on the increase. That's why people go to the streets to hawk. And in Nigeria now, we have the number of street hawkers now is on the increase. Why? Because of poverty. People need to afford food. People need to put food on their table for themselves and their family. That's why we see young children even on the street hawking.
It's a legit business, and then it pays off for a lot of people. And it's something that we can't deny in Nigeria. It cannot end in Nigeria. Nigeria will always have street hawkers. I think a big part of the population depend on street hawkers. Down to the meals we eat, breakfast, some clothes, food items, and all are being hawked on the street. And then the average man who doesn't have access to supermarkets, shops, and trust me, items sold on the streets are cheaper, because the people are literally not paying for any accommodation. They can put their items on sale at fair prices as compared to those in the shops.
Over the years, street selling has become very popular and highly sought after across all social status, especially in urban areas. Governments at all levels have policies and prohibitions in place to ban hawking or street selling because they are seen as illegal, hence the need to eradicate it from the society, even though there is yet to be a better alternative.
about it on our favorite radio station. Talk to us on 93.7 Citizen FM. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, this is Citizen FM 93.7, and you are listening to the Super Citizen at Sunrise. And this is the segment of our big talk. We're talking about street selling, street trading. And interestingly, there are actually, according to my research, two kinds of street sellers. You have the vendors, and those are people who set up temporary structures like tables to set up oranges. You know, if you're driving along the road, there are those people by the side of the road. They sell oranges, they sell fruits, but it's a temporary structure. There is no guarantee that you will see these people in that same spot tomorrow. And then there are the hawkers, and these are the people who actually come on the street. They rush in, probably cross the road. And it's not just in the FCT, but it's a major issue in the FCT. When you even go to other villages, you know, you find, and many of these people, the amazing thing is how young they are. A lot of them are children. When we talk about children out of school. And right now, I know that children are in school, but if you go on the street right now, I bet you will find children who are selling things. So it's a problem. It's always been treated as an environmental problem, especially when it comes to development control in Nigeria. But is it just an environmental problem, or is it an economic problem? The FCT, think about this, grows at 9% every year, which is massive. It's one of the largest growth rates in the world. You have Nigerians who are coming from every nook and cranny of this country into this city because they have dreams. And can you stop anyone from dreaming and moving to accomplish their dreams in another city? And as long as this movement persists, you will have people who will want to hawk. So this policy that development control has, that, we want to eradicate, it's a menace. Is it really working? Should we think about eradicating it, or should we think about assimilating it, reforming it, finding a way to make it work for us? That is my curiosity this morning. Philemon Ajekuko is still here with me. Phil, you listened very closely to this report. And first of all, let me start here about the convenience, and this is why it exists, both in the supply and demand side. Supply side, you have people who are moving into Abuja. Everything is expensive in this town. People cannot afford to rent shops, and so maybe the best option, because they need to have a little something that they take home, is to be out on the street. Demand side, I am in a hold-up, not of my making, but because maybe the government has not followed the development plan as it should. I am very hot. Maybe my AC is not working. Maybe I do not have an AC. And there is somebody who is selling a cold drink. I need that drink. So, how do we have a situation where development control comes and then send these people off? And I understand development control. And I understand the principle, but I'm questioning whether this principle of zero tolerance or is actually the best way. But I don't know. Phil, please.
You want to throw it to me?
Yeah.
Incidentally, regulation of street trading goes way back to 1943 in Lagos. And it has something to do with children. So the question of children being on the street today is nothing new to Nigeria. Way back in 1943, the colonial masters, enacted a law about street trading. Now, you raise the critical question. Is it an environmental issue or is it an economic issue? Straight on, it's not an environmental issue. It has an externality on environment. That is, it has a spillover into an environmental issue. But on its own, it is not an environmental issue.
At its root.
Yes, it is an economic issue. And incidentally, two academicians in the University of Lagos, economics, they did the research between 2014 and 2020 on street trading. And here is what they came up with. Why does it persist? They gave 3 reasons. 1, it requires less capital. 2, it is cheap to manage. 3, amenable to changes without undue formalities. Those
So
are the 3.
It's adaptable.
It's adaptable. So, but at the root of those 3 is the quest to survive and the employment opportunities open in the society, especially in the urban areas. So now, you come to an urban area. I think a few days ago you guys were talking about that. You come to Abuja looking for something to do, and you discovered Abuja is a civil service environment. You don't have a lot of companies here. Now, as a human, you will eat. That is not negotiable.
You need to eat.
You need to eat. And how do you get food to eat? You need to have money, except you are a criminal. Even if you are a criminal, you still need money at some point to buy certain things because you can't steal everything from the street. So people will go to the street. Now, using Lagos as a starting point, you can see how far back and how persistent it has been. Now, this incident you just mentioned happened in Lagos in 2016 when a trailer ran into a young fellow who was selling stuff on the street. And the whole place went haywire. So many buses were burnt. And Lagos state government reaction was, oh, we cannot tolerate this. They enacted a law. If you are caught either buying or selling, 6 months in jail if you are convicted, in addition to 90,000 naira fine.
So I think that there is a disconnect here.
Right.
That these people who enact these laws perhaps don't understand the driving forces of this. If I have children,
yes,
I don't have a particular educational skill set, and except I have to use what I have. So for some of them, is that they have the ability to farm. So, for example, there are these women who, if you go around the Jabi area, there are these women who sell corn.
Yeah.
Delicious corn.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
And whenever I have the craving for corn, I drive along that route. They don't have, this is street trading. And, yes, I am not somebody who, I will not go into any market that you build for me to buy corn. I like the fact that it's convenient, that I'm driving through. It's a drive-through.
Yeah.
And I know that in the US you have these drive-throughs.
Yes.
Yeah. We don't have any drive-throughs in Nigeria.
We don't
Instead,
have flea markets.
We have we want to forbid this thing. We want to ban this thing. It's an eyesore because these are the buzzwords that we often use. But does it actually betray a lack of understanding of the depth of the issue? If these women do not sell, and we saw the fullness of this in 2020, during the COVID-19 lockdown, what was the reason why President Muhammadu Buhari decided that these lockdowns were not sustainable? Because he came to realize that a lot of our economy is not only just informal, because informal is a big word.
Yeah.
It is subsistence.
Yeah.
Which is also a big word, but here is what it means, that if the people do not go out to trade on any given day, their children may starve to death. Or, well, not to death, but they will starve. So these women that you see selling corn, these people that you see selling one thing or the other, as irritating as they may be, and I will come down to the issue of irritation, but if they don't go out to do their business, their children could starve or could go hungry, maybe without lunch or dinner that day. Maybe all they will have to eat is the corn. There's only so much corn they can eat. So they need to get out there. They need to do this business. And if you've not catered to that need, would it not be hypocritical of you to say, we would just want to send these people off because we want to look good? But look good for whom?
I think you nailed it on the head. First of all, the informal sector in most African countries is about 60%, and street trading is part of that. Now, it's not a question of them not understanding. It's a question of what is the easiest solution. I think that is where it lies. The easiest solution for government across the country is get rid of these people. But here is it. When that solution is superficial, what do you get in return? The return of the traders. So as it is in Abuja.
The next issue is the consistency.
Right.
Because it's this is my observation, and it's an honest observation. Yes. Government can take this as a feedback. It doesn't work.
It has never worked.
You just wake up one day and send trucks out and say, clear these people.
Right.
And then the day after that, you are not there. The day after that, you're not there. You allow the traders to pile up. And then every once in a while, you come out and do this. Come on. It becomes a dance in futility.
I think it is even worse than that.
Either you commit to getting these people off the streets and you maintain that and you invest the will and the money to keep them off, or you just leave them alone.
I think it's even worse than the way you have described it. What I've seen severally on the street is as they raid the place and leave the place, the traders come right back.
Yeah, because they know that government is not fully committed to doing this thing. So they know that these responses are probably as a result of some sort of executive council meeting.
Yes.
And then there's a lot of heat in that meeting. And they say, tomorrow we're going out. But then what happens consistent? If there's any policy you're implementing and you cannot fully commit to it consistently, it's no policy.
So you look around the world. Where do you find street hawking? If you look at various economies around the world,
developing economies,
poor economies,
yeah.
Yes, in poor economies. So that tells you one thing: that is an economic problem. Even if you go to the developed countries, there's still some street hawking. For instance, some Chinatown in New York, you have hawking.
Chinatown in New York. That's in the United States.
Yes, in the United States, you have hawking, but also look at the economic structure of that environment. It's mostly where you have poor people. So the nexus between the two,
between poverty
and street trading is so strong that it's undeniable. So when government looks at it, I think sometimes they are just scared that, listen, for us to get these guys off the street, it's maybe a 5-year, 10-year sustained economic plan.
Yeah.
And they're not ready to do that.
No, but that's what we should do then.
That's what we should do.
Let's look at the sustainable poverty eradication plan.
Right.
Yeah, because these people, yes, they cannot afford shops. And even if they did, there's no guarantee that people will come into their shops because they would probably get shops where there's no traffic. So it's easier for them to do this. And it's also easier for the people who are buying. You know, I stop a little bit, I pay. So the temptation is really great. I can understand government. I don't want to, just be on one side of this thing. When we listened to that report, we talked about the criminal element, that you have people who are stealing, who hide under the guise of all of this. We also have the question of people not really having the option. They cannot afford to pay for a proper shop, because when you look at Abuja, it's not the cheapest town in the city. It's pound for pound, it's actually the most important. I think the most expensive. But for real estate, I think maybe real estate is more expensive in Lagos, but that's it.
No, I don't think. I don't.
And probably not even.
No, I don't think so.
Everything in Abuja is very expensive. And yet you have a larger portion of people in this city who are poor. So what it means is essentially you cannot eradicate street trading.
I am afraid that's the truth. That is truth. You cannot, except.
But what you can do is adapt it.
Adapt it. You can.
You can regulate it.
Even to some extent. Because, for instance, as you said, you are driving on the street and it's hot and you want to get water. And somebody comes around
and you can't stop. When you're on the Nyanya exit.
Yes.
You can't stop.
Right.
It's a 10 mile highway. There's no way you can, and it's not the kind of, it's not like Kubwa, the Kubwa Expressway.
Right.
Kubwa Expressway, you can
It's
stop.
free, yes.
In Nyanya, these places, you have the markets, everything is tight. And these are the markets with the regular and formal economies where they have shops. These places are tight. You cannot stop. Maybe I'm in the inner lane. We know how people drive. It's packed. You can't stop. You're thirsty. The only way you can get anything to drink is from these street traders. So they are, it's a gap in the economy that is being filled. And unless you fill that gap, your attempts to drive these people off the streets is not going to work.
And I wanted to add too, God help you if you stop, park your car and go to a store to buy a drink. God help you. Because by the time you come back, somebody has clamped your car. You understand that? So you see, you buy on the go.
You buy on the go.
On the go. And you are free. So it's a very, very complex problem. And we have not looked at it. We have not resolved in our mind that, okay, this is a problem. It's like a vacuum that is, and they say nature doesn't...
nature abhors a vacuum.
Abhors vacuum. So once it's just like, I mean, in all my wild imagination, I didn't think that someday somebody would be selling petrol on the street in jerry can. Really. I didn't think so. But today, it's becoming a normal thing. Why? Because it is driven by forces. So when you go after these guys on the street and the forces that propel them to be on the street with jerry cans, you leave those forces alone. What are you going to have? You continue to have this treadmill circle, running on a treadmill. You are in the same spot, but you think you are running. So the bottom line, you can manage the situation. In some countries, you have flea markets where you designate an area as a flea market where you go and buy stuff. And let me also add that buyers are also driven by economic benefits. For a person who is not paying for a shop, the stuff that you will buy for 100 naira at the shop is ready to sell it to you for 60 naira. So that's an economic advantage. So on the side of the buyer, it's actually providing some benefits to you.
And there is also a nexus. I think I must mention this just before we open up the lines. There's a nexus between even security checkpoints. And street selling.
Street trading, yes, because that is where the traffic slows down.
Yeah, especially if you're doing intercity travel.
Right.
Where you find security checkpoints, you find a lot of freedom. So I think it's more of an economic problem than an environmental problem. So we've always treated it as environmental, especially in the FCT. And we talk about how much of a menace it is to the environment. But unless you have tackled the economic problem, because economic is primary, environmental is secondary. Environmental is self-actualization. It falls within self-actualization. Environment, economy falls within the primary, which is I need to survive. So unless you have provided an out for this person out there to survive, an alternative, if you say, I don't want you to stand on this corner, you have to have an honest and big conversation about, okay, what do we do with all of these people who need to sell these goods? You also have to understand how much goods are being sold. And this is where I think the developed world have it better than us. Getting the statistics, we're not big on statistics. How many goods are sold here? What is the quantum? What is this attitude that we have to statistics that we think it's a joke? You have to know. Because if you don't know, you can't fix the problem. You'll be waiting for somebody in the US to give you statistics in his country, and you borrow that, and it does not directly transfer into that. This is probably the reason why we have remained underdeveloped. We always try to adapt statistics from other places instead of developing our own, instead of data capture of our own. How many street sellers do we have? At what rate are they growing? How many goods are they selling? What are the typical goods that they're selling? What is the average age of these sellers? Have we actually gone there to try to understand the problem, the root of the problem?
Eventually, we have come to agree on one thing. I thought you said you don't like talking to economists.
No, I do.
This-
I don't
this-
like the language of the economists.
You
Speak in
see,
English. Give me breakdown.
it-
Don't tell me the macroeconomic barometer is about a 25 and year on year and this on that. Come on, let's leave that out.
Incidentally,
The implication of that
Yes.
in real life terms.
Incidentally, I'll be delivering a paper on data journalism in about a week or 2 weeks' time. So it's not just government now. Even journalists need to do more with data. But you raise the fundamental issue, because before you can work with data, you have to generate the data. We have this, how do I put it now? We don't like to do anything. Let me just put it that way. In some environment, almost everything you can think of is in data. Everything. Even if you can take, how many people buy bottles of water on the street? You will find the data. Anything at all, you can find the data. And once you have data, you begin to run that data through models. That is how economic policies develop. You run the data through models and you make informed decisions. And even when you have made informed decision, there's also a monitoring and evaluation period where you tinker, just like the CBN policy we talked about earlier. In the next 3, 4, 5 months, I expect the CBN governor to be tinkering with the policy. If it is to address a certain segment of the economy, you tinker. So it's the same thing everywhere. If you look at the highbrow areas of Abuja, you see fruit markets, right? So they have aggregated people who would want to sell fruits in different parts of the area into one particular location. And that works. That works for a place like Maitama, Asokoro, because sometimes the rent you are going to pay for those shops will blow your mind. Now, so for the rural, for the areas that are outside the highbrow areas, you should begin to
think. If it works for Maitama, will it work for Karo?
So you ask yourself that question. Will it work? If it will not work, my brother Fayemi also used to say, don't tell me there is no alternative. That even in life there is an alternative, which is death.
All right. Sorry, Phil. I will come back to you to get more of your economic breakdowns on this. I suspect it's just perhaps even more of an economic problem than an environmental problem.
It is.
But, or even a security problem. But I would like to hear what Abuja has to say, because I'm sure that all of us have probably had one experience or the other. If you've had any experience like mine, where you almost ran over a street trader, please join us on 0903 22 29 797 or 0808 22 22 037. You could also call 0818 22 22 205. Hello, good morning.
Stanley, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Could you tell us your name, where you're calling from?
Stanley, this is Bode.
Okay, Bode. Thank you for joining us, Bode.
And thanks to your guests for letting me know that an act was enacted in 1943 about street trading, even in Lagos. I never knew about that.
Neither did I.
At least I was born sometime in the 70s, but I never knew that act was up to today. Stanley, good Metama in Lipopo. I think this morning I would say a big thank you to the former minister of the FCT, Modibo. There was street trading in that Lipopo. The Cameroonian embassy, people were trading there. Each time you always go there to stop the people. And the fellow radio program was on then. On the program, we normally talked about the FCT and its challenges. But we keep on insisting, like, you don't drive the people. There's always a solution, just like what you said. Why not build a corner shop for these people there? And the FCT will generate revenue from that corner shop. Today, if you go to Lipopo, Amodibo was able to listen and was able to establish that corner shop in his time in Lipopo. If you go there today, it's a bigger market. Just like what your guest said. It's a solution-driven situation. But in our case, each government that comes or each minister, everybody just looking at the big man status. We're not looking at our peculiar problem and looking for the solution. We always compare ourselves to developed countries. When it comes to solutions, we don't look for the solutions. Just like what you said, street trading. If you come to Yanya, every Wednesday there is always a market sale in Yanya. There is a big land, a portion of land, to where the park, Yanya Park. We provide solutions that every Wednesday the FCT can come and give a portion of land to everybody. You come here and pay a token.
That's right.
The space belongs to nobody.
Yeah.
We can take 2,000, we can take 1,500. At the end of the day, everybody goes home, they clean that bit, and the FCT will generate revenue. But you come at times, this environmental will come and chase the people up and down everywhere. People will run helter skelter. We don't look for problems. And when you provide solutions, I don't know at times if the government is listening. But I hope and pray. Just like what your guest said. Those who are leading us will sometimes put up their thinking cap. Don't just look at the bigger solutions, but look at the interland. What should be the solution to this problem that we are trying to solve with, how will I put it? Every time with harsh approach to it. I just hope and pray.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very critical information there. Interestingly, the Nyanya axis, this is where we have a very high amount of street trading. But there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any highway in Abuja that sees the kind of traffic that you have along the Nyanya axis. So, if you have been in Nyanya and you have participated in either buying or selling or being a victim of that, and yes, we know, because I know that once upon a time, a long time ago, there was the challenge of people snatching phones from inside cars. So it's not as if we're not aware of the security threats that come along with it. But the question is, the economic need probably surpasses the security threat.
That's right. That's right.
And when that happens, when the quantum of economic need supersedes the security threat, the economic need will always win.
Prevail.
It
no
will
matter
always prevail.
what you do.
All right. Well, we still want to hear from you. Call us on 0903 2229 797. The lines are open and will remain so until the end of the program. You can also call 0818 2222 205 or 0808 2222 037. I would like to hear from you whether you think that street trading is a menace to society, an eyesore, as is what is often explained whenever we deploy people on the streets, or is it something that we can adapt? Are there ways that we can organize it? And if these ways do not work, if you think these ways do not work, then the larger question is, what is the alternative? Because it's not going to stop. I mentioned there's a 9% annual growth, which is a lot. People are coming here. And first of all, you have to ask, why are people coming to Abuja in the first place?
Yeah.
All right, let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. Could you tell us your name, where you're calling from?
Morning. What's your name and location?
This is also Bona. I'm calling from a pro block here.
Okay, please go ahead.
Where is mommy?
Hello?
Yes, can I speak to Mama?
Okay, sorry. I think that this call is not for us. There is no Mama here.
Yeah. Mama has gone to the market, to the street market. There was something Body said that was at the back of my mind. When you create alternative markets where people pay a token, they don't need shops. They just get into the area, pay like 200 naira, 100 naira a day. That is partly a solution to the problem. So it's something that you can designate certain areas within the urban areas as a free trade zone, so to speak.
Because free trade zone does not have to follow the definition of
exactly
what the Western world again tells us.
And then you should also make provision for people to be able to drive in freely and drive out freely.
But doesn't that require, because there will be an effect with the free trade zone.
Yeah.
The local, let's call it the indigenous free trade zone.
Yeah.
It means you will have a lot of traffic buildup. But then it means that government would have to commit to providing the infrastructure that if you do not want to pass through this free trade zone, There should be a bypass.
Right.
And maybe this is part of the reason why the government is, because of the cost. For example, if I'm coming to Abuja from Jos and I've passed through Kefi, I have to go through Nyanya. I have no other choice, which means that if for any reason this happens on a day that the roads are crowded, I have to participate in the holdup. But what if there was an alternative route where if I don't want to buy anything on the street, at least I can follow that route and get into the city much
Guess what?
quicker.
The federal government did it in Benin some years back. On your way from Lagos to Delta, my place, when you get to Benin, it's crazy. And during the rainy season, Lord have mercy. And then they did a ring road. They did a ring road around Benin City. So if you don't have any reason to be within the city, you don't have to go into the city. You just take the bypass and you're off. And that's sort of there were times where you could spend 4-5 hours within the city.
And there is nothing that you're saying that says that the government should do it today.
No.
But it's about when development control or when these meetings, these Federal Executive Council meetings are going on for Abuja, one of the things that they do need to look at, and we're offering ideas now, is to say, yes, why don't we have a ring road, approve for the construction of a ring road between Kefi and the city center, where you do not have to pass through the Nyanya axis. All right, we have another call coming in. Let's listen to that one. Hello, good morning.
Hello, Stanley.
Yes, good morning.
Stanley.
Yeah.
Stanley, see. I think I've lived in Abuja the last 17 I came back with that last 22 years. The Nyanya is a ring road. It's an open field. It's on the both sides. I've done my analysis. Today is Wednesday. The people that comes to that market to sell, each day, boys who just come around and collect maybe 500 one. At the end of the day, they go home. Those miscreants go home with nothing less than 2, 3, 4, 500,000.
Yeah.
Let's assume government can prove it's a ring road. Let's use that empty field on both sides. If Abuja Environmental Protection, I think there were times the road safety comes along that road and you come, you pay 1,000. There's a space for it. At the end of the day, if government are generating revenue from there, the resources you are talking about now can be provided. It can just be an open market where nobody owns a shop. That is what we are talking about. And revenue can be generated from. I've done the study and I've found solutions to it. But you'll be surprised today that you will come there, these environmental protection people will come and started chasing these people everywhere where there is a solution to it. And there's a park. The Young Park is rightly opposite those two open fields. Why not we look for solution just like what you are trying to say? And we are looking for money where there is money in the country.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Honestly, I love this intervention because it's about ideas, it's about solutions, and we recognize that when ideas are offered, there could be challenges, but I don't like to look at limitations. There is always an alternative. We are running out of time. Phil, I will have my roundup, but I want to give you about a minute to give us your final words as to how you think we can overcome this problem.
My final word is a general one. Man was built with the capacity to sort things out. That is how we got to where we are now, all over the world. So let us not be afraid of solutions. Let us not be afraid of doing the tough work that we need to do to move our lives forward. Once we have that at the back of our mind, every challenge, no matter what, people are going from here to Mars. Do you know how many miles that is? They send satellites.
Going yet.
Yeah, they send satellites to Mars.
Yeah.
Some deep space. We are talking about market, which is just around the corner.
We can do better.
We can do better, Sally. We can do better.
All right, and for me, my final words are about pressure. Sometimes pressure is good because pressure can force you in the right direction. And here's the thing. We have economic pressures, and there are two ways to handle pressure. Number one, you can resist pressure, or you can adapt it. And these two principles apply in different ways. If you are resisting pressure, then you have to be made of sterner stuff. If you're resisting pressure, it means you become iron, so that if anything strikes you, the pressure will not penetrate. And when we say there is zero tolerance for street trading, it means we're proclaiming that we are iron, except we are not iron because we have a vulnerability, poverty, and the high movement of people from other parts of the country, which means that for every street trader we chase off the street, there will most likely be 10 over the course of the next 6 months to 2 years who will be ready to replace them. The other option, though, is should we adapt to pressure? And what is adapting to pressure? Scientists and engineers will tell you much better than I can. When you strike an object, it either vibrates to dissipate that pressure throughout. And adapting this pressure means coming up with policies that allow for some of these things to function in a way that it would not threaten the objectives that we want. And in these objectives, it's that we want a beautiful aesthetic for the FCT. So the question we need to ask ourselves is probably not whether we want to eliminate street trading, but is there a way that we can adapt it that will not threaten the development of the FCT? Perhaps if we think in that direction, we'll find the answers that we are looking for. So thank you very much to Philemon Ajekuko. It's been a pleasure having you this morning.
My pleasure.
Thank you also to the rest of the team, to my producer Fred, to the engineer Michelia, to everyone who listened to and called in the show to participate. It's been such a blast. I'll see you again tomorrow, and have a lovely day, Abuja, wherever you are.